You don't expect a single piece of evidence to flip an entire case upside down, but that's exactly what just happened. One file, one discovery, and now everything investigators thought they knew? It's being questioned. Because this story was supposed to be straightforward. It wasn't supposed to get darker, but overnight, it did. This is the kind of case that pulls you in slowly and then refuses to let go. At first, it seemed like another tragic story, a missing person, a timeline that almost made sense, a suspect that looked obvious. But now, with new evidence surfacing, people are asking a terrifying question. What if we've been looking at the wrong story the entire time? Let me take you back to the beginning. It all started in a quiet neighborhood, the kind of place where nothing ever really happens. Tree-lined streets, neighbors who wave at each other, kids riding bikes in the afternoon. Safe. Predictable. Normal. That's why what happened here felt so out of place. Her name was Emily Carter, 27 years old, smart, driven, and by all accounts, careful. She worked a steady job, had a close circle of friends, and spoke to her family almost every day. There was nothing reckless about her, nothing that would suggest she'd just disappear. But that's exactly what happened. On a Tuesday night, Emily sent one final text to her best friend. Just a few words. Nothing dramatic, nothing that stood out at the time. It read, "Hey, I'll call you later. Something's going on." That call never came. By the next morning, her phone was off. By the afternoon, she hadn't shown up to work. And by evening, people started to worry. At first, it didn't seem like an emergency. Adults go off the grid sometimes. Phones die. Plans change. But Emily wasn't like that. She didn't just vanish. And the people who knew her best felt it immediately. Something was wrong. Police were contacted within 24 hours. When officers arrived at her apartment, nothing looked disturbed. The door was locked. No signs of forced entry. Her purse was still inside. Her keys right where she always left them. Even her car was parked outside. It was like she had stepped out for just a moment and never came back. That's when things started to shift. Investigators began building a timeline. They pulled security footage from nearby buildings. They spoke to neighbors. They checked phone records. Slowly, a picture started forming, but it wasn't clear. Not yet. The last confirmed sighting of Emily was around 8:42 p.m. that Tuesday. A neighbor reported seeing her near the parking lot, talking to someone. At first, they couldn't describe the person clearly. Just a figure, a silhouette in the dim light. But that detail mattered, because Emily wasn't known to meet people late at night. Especially not outside. Especially not alone. So, who was she talking to? That question became the center of everything. Detectives dug deeper into her recent activity. Her calls, her messages, her social media. And at first, nothing seemed unusual. Conversations with friends, work-related emails, normal daily life. Until they found something. A series of messages. Not from a saved contact. Just a number, no name attached. The messages weren't long. Short, vague, almost careful. "Are you sure? We need to talk. Tonight. It's important." And then Emily's last reply, "Okay. But this doesn't feel right." That changed everything. Now, the case wasn't just about a disappearance. It was about a meeting. A planned one. With someone she didn't fully trust. Investigators traced the number. But it wasn't easy. It had been routed through multiple apps. Burner services. Temporary registrations. Whoever was behind it didn't want to be found. That alone raised red flags. Because people who hide like that usually have a reason. As the days passed, pressure started building. Media picked up the story. Headlines spread. A missing woman. Mysterious messages. A last meeting with an unknown person. It had all the elements of something bigger. Tips started pouring in. Some helpful. Most not. But one tip stood out. A man came forward. Said he had seen Emily that night. Not just near her apartment, but getting into a car. A dark-colored sedan. He couldn't identify the driver, but he was sure of one thing. She didn't look comfortable. According to him, Emily hesitated before getting in. Like she wasn't sure. Like something felt off. But she still got in. And then the car drove away. That was the last time anyone saw her. Now investigators had something tangible. A vehicle. A possible suspect. A direction. They pulled traffic cameras, street cams, anything that could have captured that car. And eventually, they found it. Blurry footage, but enough to identify the make and model. A black sedan. Older model. Common, but still traceable. They ran it through databases, narrowed it down, cross-referenced registrations in the area. And then, they got a hit. The car belonged to a man named Daniel Reeves, 32 years old, no serious criminal record. A few minor offenses years ago, but nothing violent. On paper, he didn't stand out. But his connection to Emily? That's what mattered. At first, there didn't seem to be one. No shared workplace. No mutual friends. No visible link. Until investigators looked deeper. Because sometimes connections aren't obvious. Sometimes they're buried. And when they checked financial records, they found something strange. A payment. 3 weeks before Emily disappeared, she had transferred money to Daniel. Not a huge amount, but enough to raise questions. Especially since there was no clear reason for it. No invoice, no explanation. Just a transfer. Why would she send money to someone she supposedly didn't know? That question led detectives straight to him. Daniel was brought in for questioning. At first, he was calm, cooperative, said he barely knew Emily. Claimed the money was repayment for a small favor. Something casual, nothing serious. But his story didn't hold up. Details didn't match. Timelines shifted. Small inconsistencies started stacking up, and then came the bigger problem. His car. When asked about his whereabouts that Tuesday night, Daniel hesitated, just for a second. But it was enough. He said he was home, alone. Knew one to confirm it. But the traffic footage told a different story. His car matching the same model was seen in Emily's area around the exact time she disappeared. That changed the tone completely. Now he wasn't just a person of interest. He was a suspect. Search warrants were issued. Police examined his car, his home, his devices. And that's when things started getting darker. Inside the vehicle, investigators found traces of something. Not obvious. Not at first glance. But, under forensic testing, it became clear. Blood. Small amounts. Cleaned, but not completely. And it matched Emily. That discovery sent shockwaves through the case. Because now, this wasn't just a disappearance. It was something far more serious. Daniel was arrested shortly after. Charged. Held without bail. And for a moment, it seemed like the case was heading toward a conclusion. A suspect. Physical evidence. A timeline that pointed in one direction. But here's where things take a turn. Because, even with all of that, something didn't add up. There was still no body, no confirmed crime scene, and no clear motive. Why would Daniel target Emily? Their connection was still unclear. And then, something else surfaced. Something investigators almost missed. A detail buried in digital records. Emily had searched for something just hours before she disappeared. A location, not a public place, not a business, an address. And when detectives looked into it, it didn't belong to Daniel. It belonged to someone else, someone who hadn't even been on their radar. At least, not yet. And that's where this story begins to shift, in a way no one expected. Because the deeper investigators went, the more complicated everything became. And just when it felt like they were closing in on the truth, new evidence dropped. And suddenly, this case wasn't what anyone thought it was. That address didn't look like much at first. Just a small, single-story house sitting at the edge of town. Quiet street. No heavy traffic. The kind of place you'd drive past without ever noticing. But for investigators, it instantly became the center of attention. Because Emily had searched it just hours before she vanished. And now, the question was simple. Why Detectives moved quickly. They couldn't afford to wait. A search warrant was issued, and within hours a team was standing outside that house, preparing to go in. The property belonged to a man named Victor Hale, 41 years old, no major criminal record, kept to himself, worked freelance, mostly online jobs, nothing that drew attention. On paper, he was invisible, but that's exactly what made him interesting. When officers knocked on the door, there was no answer. They tried again. Still nothing. So they went in. Inside, the house felt off. Not messy, not abandoned, but strangely empty. Like someone had been there recently but didn't plan on coming back. Furniture was minimal. Surfaces were clean. Too clean. Almost staged. Investigators began a systematic search. Every room, every drawer, every inch of the place. At first, they didn't find much, but then they reached the back room, and that's where things changed. There was a desk, a laptop, several external hard drives neatly stacked beside it. Everything powered off, everything silent. But when forensic analysts powered the system back on, they found something that immediately raised alarms. Encrypted files, dozens of them, locked behind layers of security. That alone was enough to escalate the situation, because people don't go to that level of effort to hide something unless it matters. The devices were seized and sent for deep analysis. Meanwhile, investigators started digging into Victor Hale himself, and what they found didn't make things any less complicated. Victor had no obvious connection to Emily. No calls, no texts, no social media interactions, nothing direct. But indirect connections? Those started to appear. They discovered that Victor had been active on several online forums, private groups, niche communities that required invites to join. And buried inside those networks, there were usernames that appeared more than once. One of them might have belonged to Emily. That's when the case took another turn. Because now, it wasn't just about a random meeting or a suspicious payment. It hinted at something deeper, something hidden. Investigators began reconstructing Emily's digital life, not just what was visible, but what was beneath the surface. And slowly, a second version of her life started to emerge. Late-night logins, encrypted messaging apps, accounts that weren't tied to her real name. It didn't mean she was doing anything illegal, but it did mean she was involved in something she hadn't told anyone about. And whatever that was, it connected her to Victor. But here's where things get even more unsettling. While all of this was unfolding, Daniel Reeves, the man already in custody, wasn't staying quiet. At first, he denied everything. But after the discovery of the blood evidence, his tone changed. He asked to speak with detectives again. This time, he had something new to say. According to Daniel, he did meet Emily that night. He admitted it. He said she contacted him first, not the other way around. That alone contradicted what investigators believed. Because up until that point, it looked like Daniel had initiated the contact using that unknown number. But now he was claiming she reached out to him, and not just casually. He said she was nervous, rushed, like she needed help. According to his statement, Emily asked him to pick her up, said she couldn't explain everything over the phone, said it wasn't safe. That changed the dynamic completely, because now, instead of Daniel luring her somewhere, it sounded like she was trying to get away from something or someone. Daniel claimed he picked her up around 8:45 p.m., said she got into the car willingly, but he also admitted something was off. He described her as tense, distracted, constantly looking at her phone, and at one point, she told him to drive. Just drive. No destination. No explanation. Just go. According to Daniel, they drove for about 20 minutes before she finally spoke again. And what she said didn't make sense to him at the time. But now, it sounded different. He claimed Emily told him she had found something she wasn't supposed to find. Something involving files, data, information that could ruin people. Those were his exact words. At first, detectives weren't sure whether to believe him. It sounded vague, convenient, like he was trying to shift the narrative. But then, the digital evidence from Victor's house started coming in. And suddenly, Daniel's story didn't seem so far-fetched, because forensic teams managed to break through part of the encryption. Not all of it, but enough. And what they uncovered was disturbing. The files contained records, lists, transactions, not typical financial data, something else. Patterns of communication, anonymous exchanges, and references to individuals identified only by coded names. It wasn't immediately clear what it all meant, but one thing was obvious. This wasn't random. This was organized, carefully structured, and hidden for a reason. As analysts dug deeper, they found timestamps, dates that aligned with Emily's activity, moments when she had logged into those hidden accounts, moments when files were accessed, or changed, or copied, which meant one thing. Emily hadn't just stumbled onto this. She had been interacting with it. The question was, why? Was she investigating something? Helping someone? Or was she part of it? That uncertainty made the case even more complicated. Because now, investigators weren't just trying to find a missing person. They were trying to understand her role in something much bigger. Meanwhile, Daniel's statement continued. He claimed that after Emily told him about the files, she started panicking. Said someone might be watching her. Said she made a mistake. At one point, he said she asked him to stop the car, right in the middle of a quiet road. No houses nearby. No traffic. Just darkness. He said she got out, started pacing, talking to herself, and then she made a call. He couldn't hear the other side of the conversation, but he remembered what she said. You said this wouldn't happen. You promised. And then, silence. According to Daniel, that's when things escalated. He claimed another car approached. Fast, too fast, pulled up behind them. Headlights on full beam, blinding. And then, someone stepped out. He couldn't see their face clearly, just a figure, moving with purpose. And that's where his story gets harder to verify, because Daniel says everything happened quickly after that. He claims Emily told him to leave, told him to get out of there, but he hesitated. And that hesitation is something investigators are still questioning, because the next part of his story, it doesn't fully line up. He says he got back in the car, started the engine, and drove away, leaving Emily behind, alone, with that unknown person. But if that's true, then how did her blood end up in his car? That contradiction is still one of the biggest gaps in his account. And it's why, despite everything, he remains a central suspect. But now, he's not the only one, because Victor Hale is no longer just a background figure. He's part of the picture, and investigators are starting to believe he might be connected to that second car. But here's where things take another turn, because while all of this was unfolding, a new piece of evidence surfaced. Something recent. Something no one expected. A file, uploaded anonymously, sent directly to a tip line connected to the case. No name, no explanation, just a video. And when investigators opened it, they realized immediately this case was about to get even darker. The video was only 37 seconds long. No title, no sound at first. Just a timestamp in the corner, and a grainy image that looked like it had been recorded on an old security camera. The quality was poor, but not poor enough to miss what mattered. It showed a road, empty, dark, surrounded by trees, and then headlights. A car, pulling into frame. Investigators froze that moment immediately, because the shape, the outline, it matched Daniel's vehicle. Same model. Same profile. But what happened next is what changed everything. The driver's door opened. A man stepped out. The angle made it hard to see his face clearly. But the build, the posture, it looked like Daniel. He walked around the car, paused, and then opened the passenger side door. For a split second, the interior light flickered on. And that's when they saw her. Emily, alive, sitting in the passenger seat, her head turned toward him. Her body tense. Even without audio, you could feel the intensity of that moment. Then the video glitched. A brief distortion, static across the screen, and when the image stabilized again, everything was different. Now there was a second car, parked behind them, exactly where Daniel said it had been. The headlights were on full beam, washing out most of the details. But not all of them. A figure stepped out, slowly, deliberately, and this time, the camera caught more than anyone expected. The person was wearing a hood, face partially obscured, but as they moved closer to the light, there was a brief moment, less than a second, where their face became visible. Just enough. Enough for investigators to extract a still frame. And when they enhanced it, the room went quiet because it wasn't Victor. It wasn't anyone they had identified so far. This was someone new. Someone completely off the radar. But here's the part that made it worse. The video didn't end there. It cut again. Another glitch. Another shift. Now the camera angle looked slightly different, like it was being recorded from another device nearby. And what it showed next, no one was prepared for. Emily was no longer in the car. She was outside, standing between the two vehicles, her arms crossed tightly, like she was trying to hold herself together. The unknown figure stood a few feet away from her. And Daniel, he was still there. But now, he wasn't moving. He was just standing beside his car, watching. That detail alone raised 100 new questions, because in his version of events, he had already left. But here he was, still present, still part of whatever was happening. And then, movement. The unknown figure stepped closer to Emily. Too close. She stepped back. You could see it clearly. A reaction, a sign of fear. And then again, no audio. But the body language said everything. An argument. Tense. Fast. Heated. Emily gesturing. Shaking her head. The other person, calm. Almost controlled. And then, the moment that investigators keep replaying, over and over, the figure reached into their pocket, pulled something out. Small, impossible to identify clearly from the footage. But whatever it was, it changed everything. Emily froze, completely still. Daniel took a step back. Just one. But it was enough. Enough to show he was afraid too. And then, the screen went black. No transition. No fade. Just gone. 37 seconds. That was all they had. But it was more than enough to blow the case wide open. Because now, Daniel's story wasn't just incomplete. It was contradicted. He didn't leave when he said he did. He was there, present, watching, and possibly involved. But at the same time, the video introduced something new. A third person. Someone who clearly had control over the situation. Someone Emily was afraid of. And someone who had not been identified. Yet, investigators immediately shifted focus. Facial recognition was attempted. Database. Cross-checks. Public records. Nothing. No match. It was like this person didn't exist, or didn't want to be found. Meanwhile, the video itself became its own mystery. Who recorded it? Where did it come from? And why send it now? Because this wasn't old evidence suddenly discovered in storage. This was uploaded recently, after Daniel's arrest, after the search of Victor's house, after the case had already gained attention, which meant one thing: whoever sent it was watching, following the investigation, and choosing the exact moment to intervene. That possibility changed the tone inside the investigation room, because now it wasn't just about solving a crime. It was about understanding who else was out there and what they knew. Forensic teams went deeper into the video file. Metadata, compression patterns, anything that could trace its origin. And eventually, they found something. A fragment, a digital fingerprint tied to the upload process. It didn't reveal a name, but it pointed to a network. The same kind of encrypted routing system that had been used in those anonymous messages to Emily. The same kind of system linked to Victor's files. That connection was impossible to ignore, which meant the video wasn't random. It was part of the same hidden structure. the same network. And if that was true, then this wasn't just about Emily anymore. It was about something bigger, something organized, and possibly ongoing. Meanwhile, Daniel was brought in again. This time, the tone was different. No more open-ended questions, just facts. They showed him the video, frame by frame, watched his reaction. At first, he tried to stay composed, but when the footage reached the moment where he was clearly still there, still present, still watching, his expression changed. Not panic, not exactly, but something close, something like realization, like he understood. The story he had told wasn't going to hold anymore. And for the first time since his arrest, he hesitated to answer. That silence, it spoke louder than anything he had said before. But even now, even with the video, even with the contradictions, one question still remained unanswered. What actually happened to Emily after that moment? Because the footage ends before anything definitive occurs. No clear act, no confirmed outcome, just tension, fear, and then darkness. And that's what makes this case so unsettling, because everything points to something terrible, but nothing shows it. Not directly, not yet. And just when investigators thought this video was the biggest break they were going to get, another detail surfaced, hidden in the final frames. Something so subtle, it was almost missed. But once they saw it, they couldn't unsee it, because reflected in the side mirror of Daniel's car, there was something else. Another shape, another presence, watching from a distance, a fourth person. And that realization changed everything again. That reflection wasn't a glitch. Investigators checked it again and again, frame by frame, enhanced, stabilized, cross-referenced from multiple angles inside the footage. It was real. A fourth person, standing just outside the main scene, far enough to stay unnoticed, but close enough to see everything. Watching, not intervening, not moving, just observing. And that detail shifted the entire case into something far more unsettling. Because now, this wasn't just a confrontation between three people. It was being witnessed, possibly recorded, from more than one device, which meant the video sent to investigators. It might not even be the original source, just a copy, a fragment of something larger. That realization triggered a full reevaluation of everything. Investigators went back to Victor Hale's files, this time looking for anything that matched the idea of surveillance, monitoring, recording, and buried deep inside one of the recovered drives, they found it. A folder, hidden behind multiple layers of encryption, labeled only with a date. The same date Emily disappeared. When they finally accessed it, the contents confirmed their worst fears. Multiple video files, different angles, different positions, all capturing the same stretch of road, the same moment, the same event. Whoever set this up didn't just want to meet Emily. They planned it, documented it, from start to finish. And that means one thing. This wasn't random. It was controlled, carefully orchestrated. But here's where the case takes its final turn. Because in one of those additional video angles, something becomes clear. Something that changes how you see everyone involved. In that version of the footage, the moment before everything escalates is longer, clearer, and you can see Emily's face. Not just fear, not just panic, recognition. She knew the person standing in front of her. This wasn't a stranger. This wasn't a random threat. This was someone she recognized and didn't expect to see there. And then another detail. Just before the unknown figure reaches into their pocket, Emily says something. This time, the audio is faint, but it's there, distorted, barely audible. But after enhancement, one sentence comes through. You weren't supposed to be here. Not, who are you? Not, leave me alone. But that, which means this meeting wasn't meant for that person. Someone else was supposed to be there. And that changes everything. Because now you're looking at a situation where multiple parties showed up for reasons we still don't fully understand. Daniel, Victor possibly behind the setup, the unknown figure, and the fourth observer. Fouhol, one location, one night, and Emily right in the middle of it. After that moment, the footage continues just a few seconds longer than the original clip investigators received. And what it shows finally fills in the gap. The unknown figure steps forward, quickly, decisively. There's a sudden movement, a struggle, brief, chaotic. Daniel backs away further. He doesn't intervene. He doesn't run. He just watches. And then Emily disappears from frame, pulled out of view. Toward the second vehicle, the door opens, closes, and within seconds, that car is gone. Gone into the dark, leaving Daniel behind, leaving the scene empty. Except for one thing. In the final frame of that extended footage, the fourth person moves, just slightly, stepping back into the shadows, like they've seen enough, like their role in this moment is complete. That's the last visual record investigators have of Emily. After that, nothing. No confirmed sightings. No financial activity. No digital footprint. Just silence. Daniel eventually changed his statement again. Faced with the full footage, he admitted he didn't leave when he said he did. He claimed he froze, said he was scared, said he didn't understand what was happening, but he still denied being part of any plan. Denied knowing who the third person was. Denied everything beyond what could be proven on video. Victor Hale? He was arrested shortly after the files were fully decrypted, charged with multiple offenses tied to the data network investigators uncovered. But even under interrogation, he refused to explain Emily's role, refused to identify anyone else involved, and, most importantly, refused to answer the question everyone needed answered. Where is she? As for the unknown figure captured in the footage, to this day, still unidentified. No matches, no confirmed identity, just a face in a single frame, tied to a moment that changed everything. And the fourth person? The observer? Even less is known. No clear image, no traceable data, just a presence, a witness who has never come forward and may never. So now, the case stands in a place that feels almost impossible. There's evidence. There are suspects. There's even video of the moment everything went wrong. But there's still no closure, no confirmed outcome, no answers about what happened after that car disappeared into the dark. And that's what makes this story stay with you. Because it's not just about what we know, it's about what we don't. It's about the gaps, the missing pieces, the silence after the last frame. Some people believe Emily uncovered something she wasn't meant to see. Something tied to that hidden network. Something powerful enough to make her a target. Others think she was deeper in it than anyone realized. That she wasn't just a victim, but part of a situation that spiraled out of control. And then there are those who focus on the video itself, on the fact that someone recorded everything, watched everything, and then chose to release just enough to keep the story alive. Which raises one final question. Why? Why send the footage at all? Why not stay completely hidden? Unless this wasn't about helping the investigation. Unless it was about control, about shaping what we see and what we don't. Because in a case like this, information is power. And whoever still holds the missing pieces, they're the ones really in control. So now I want to hear from you. What do you think actually happened that night? Was Daniel just a witness? Or something more? Was Victor the one pulling strings? Or just part of a bigger system? And who do you think that third person really is? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If this case got under your skin, make sure you hit like and subscribe because we're going to keep following stories like this, the ones that don't have easy answers. And trust me, this one isn't over.